These are some terrible 3D experiences, but the movies are pretty good. Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Entrepreneur. Welcome to my media channel. If you like channels where we talk about physical media, streaming, and movies, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, smash that like button, and we are continuing with our other list of top 10 worst Blu-ray 3Ds. Now, we already did a list of this for 3D Blu-ray movies I consider to have bad 3D, but also had the added insult of injury of being bad movies. This is the opposite side of that coin. These are still movies with 3D experiences that are pretty lackluster if we're being honest. The difference is these movies are actually pretty good and they might be worth watching otherwise. So I guess the moral of the story is whether you see them in 3D or you see them in 2D, you're going to be seeing a good movie. Just don't expect a whole lot from the 3D experience. And this is definitely the less offensive of the list of the two, and that probably will be highlighted more so by our number 10 pick on this list, which is Alfred Hitchcock's Dial M for Murder. And this actually kind of shows what I'm talking about. See, this is a movie that was filmed in 3D. This was literally a 3D event for Alfred Hitchcock. It was his first 3D film, and I'm glad that 3D lasted long enough that we got a disc of it, but at the same time, it's nothing special. It's pretty clear that Hitchcock was not thinking about 3D the way that you probably should. It is a typical whodunit, man wrongly accused, or maybe in this case, woman wrongly accused, and with a great ending and everything. And Hitchcock just did not know what to do with the 3D. There's one shot that thematically is very interesting with the 3D where a guy is waiting to commit his crime and there's a phone just hanging out towards you from a distance. You can see how far away the phone is, and that ends up being very poetic considering what happens a few minutes later. Shots like that do add something to the movie, but they are very, very few and far between, and most of the time you're frankly going to forget that you're watching a 3D film. So it's a very good movie. Glad to have the 3D version because it was shot that way, but if you can only watch it in 2D, honestly, not missing much. Now, another movie that I don't love this movie. I think it's good. I don't love it the way other people do. I think the fourth one's a lot better. But we have Toy Story 3. This was the first Toy Story movie that was really shot and developed for 3D. And there's a couple interesting shots, particularly with Mrs. Potato Head's eyes. But for the most part, the 3D is not really adding anything to it. I think it was the first time. I think the same year this came out, How to Train Your Dragon came out. And I saw How to Train Your Dragon first in IMAX 3D. And it blew my mind to what 3D could be, even more so than Avatar. Then when I went to see Toy Story 3 in IMAX 3D, it was kind of a reminder that while it doesn't take away from the film per se, it's still okay in 3D. Well, it's not exactly helping the movie either. And I could see where people who were paying an extra $4 per ticket to see it in 3D might feel a little jilted as a result. So this is, not terrible, but it's not very engaging either. But now we're going to start getting into the movies that are kind of bad in 3D. One of them is I, Robot with Will Smith. Now, I like this movie. I know it has nothing to do with the book, and the book is significantly better. But I do like I, Robot. But this was an interesting experiment because this did not get a theatrical release as far as I'm aware. This was when studios were starting to take some of their hit movies and they were putting 3D coats of paint on them for the new 3D TV market, and this was one of them. And I think some people bought titles like this, saw the poor 3D conversion, and basically started getting jilted over 3D. Like maybe things like this would start to convince them like maybe 3D wasn't worth the extra money they were charging for it. I don't recall this being super expensive. I also just don't believe this helped matters very much. The 3D definitely seemed like a quick conversion job. It was actually fairly inconsistent at times, and I think, I mean, I would have liked to have seen maybe more movies get 3D up conversions straight to the disc market, but things like this did not help that case. So, a fairly recent movie that was in 3D, and this was, man, one of the big problems with this is that it was just way too dark of a movie to support 3D. It was Tomb Raider. And I love how they put like the 3D. They're really making it seem like the 3D is an integral part of this movie, and it's absolutely not. There are some scenes underwater where the 3D really shines, but for the most part, it's not holding up its end of the bargain. It's making the scenes darker than it needs to be. The movie is actually shockingly enjoyable. I actually kind of enjoyed this one quite a bit. It was much better than the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider, I'll tell you that. Although the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raiders might be more fun to watch because they're kind of, campy. But the 3D is not pulling its weight on this one, and so I don't think it's really all that great. Now, this one's going to be interesting for a lot of people because a lot of people did not have the opportunity to see this one in 3D. It was going to be released in 3D in America, but the 3D release was canceled, which might give you a hint at why we're talking about it now. But there is the import game. I have a region-free Blu-ray player, and we have the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. I definitely like this movie. I liked it a lot more than Part 1. I don't think they should have split the movies up. I don't think there was enough material there to make 2 movies on that, but, I think we all know that. And yeah, it's a good movie. I like the way it ended and everything, but the 3D, not very impressive. It's there, but you're looking at it, it's pretty clear that they were not shooting it with 3D in mind. Many of the scenes don't take advantage of the 3D, and even the scenes that looks like it should be taking advantage of the 3D, they just aren't. So that's why this is on the list, and it is absolutely not worth importing. I went through this very, very bad 3D experience so that you didn't have to. It's still a good movie, so if you want to check out the movie and the rest of the movies, feel free to do so, but you don't need to see that one in 3D. Now, this one is especially strange. This one's especially strange to even be talking about because unlike the other movies on this list, there's some really good movies on this list, but this is undeniably a great movie. This is a movie, it actually kind of almost baffles me that it made absolutely no impact on the world of cinema, especially since it's one of the few movies to sweep the Academy Awards. It won 9 Oscars, including Director and Best Picture. And almost no one talks about it. And it goes from studio to studio because it seems like no one wants to claim ownership for this movie. And I do not understand why. And I really do not understand why they thought it needed a 3D release. And that is The Last Emperor. Bernardo Bertolucci's The Last Emperor. By the way, fun fact, first PG-13 film to win Best Picture. This is such a good movie. If you wanted to, don't take my word for it. I believe as of this recording, you can stream it on HBO Max. Criterion has a problematic release of it, but Criterion Collection, it's part of the Criterion Collection, but you can stream it on HBO Max if you don't want to buy that, and you can see what I'm talking about. This is a fantastic movie. I do not know why they made a 3D version. This made no sense whatsoever. It's a drama. It's a time period drama in the Forbidden City. And even some of the shots that you would think that it would work in 3D because the shots are epic and they're vast and it's like, oh my gosh, this is where the 3D. No, the 3D, the 3D is shockingly very dynamic in indoor settings and shockingly flat in outdoor settings where the scope of the movie really shines. But it doesn't matter because it's stinking a drama. There's virtually no action in this movie. It's a lot of sitting around, talking. I'm making it sound worse than it is, but it is very engaging. But it's all of the things that you would think would make for a great 3D movie are not in this. This was clearly meant to be a 2D movie, and the colors are so important, and the 3D glasses do hurt the colors a bit on this. I do not understand this release at all. The only reason it's not higher on the list is because there's clearly worse 3D movies that I have. This is by far the most baffling, though. I don't understand why that ended up becoming a thing. Now then, we're having a movie that I actually think this one is very good. And it's definitely left its mark on culture in good and in bad ways, but it's Shrek. Unfortunately, this is by far DreamWorks' worst 3D movie. It's just there's almost no pop to it. There's no reason for this to be in 3D. Even like the scene where they're in the dungeon, or not the dungeon, the tower, and they're saving the princess from the dragon, you would think the 3D would kick in at that point and actually make something out of this movie, or make something more out of this movie. It doesn't. It's pretty flat. It's pretty uneventful. So I've been picking on poor Shrek here. We'll have to see if maybe Shrek could have some redemption on one of the other lists, but yeah, unfortunately, just not very good on that one. Now then, we've got three more. These are the top three. I like this. I actually think this is a very underrated Marvel movie, to be honest. It's Thor. And I think Kenneth Branagh did something very interesting with Thor. I mean, tasked with making a low-budget superhero movie about a Greek god. I thought he made some very interesting choices to bring Thor down to earth and humanize him a little bit. I actually think this is one of the better Marvel movies, but the 3D is pretty slap hazard. The good news is there are a few shots where the 3D does pop, but it was clearly kind of a last minute thought while they were making the movie, and it just does not pop in the right ways sometimes. Like, it looks maybe a little pop-up bookish at times. There's going to be another movie we're talking about that has a very big problem with that, but you know, if it looks like a pop-up book, then you're kind of taking me out of the movie because it's bringing too much attention to the 3D in a way that is not immersive as it should be. So that's Thor. Now, number 2 on our list is bad 3D for a very different reason. That's because Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, the 3D is muddy, it's dark, it's chaotic. A couple of these shots with the wand fights are not terrible, and the dome is kind of nice. But this is a movie where it's like, I'm just going to outright say it. This is, only watch this one in 2D. Do not bother on the 3D. It's not worth it. It's a very good movie. It's probably one of the best of the series, which you would hope so because, you know, it's bringing it all to an end. But the 3D is just a muddy, messy, blurry mess that I do not recommend or wish on many people. Now then, before we talk about number 1, and gosh darn it, it kills me to say number 1 because number 1 is an all-time classic, I am going to share some movies that are going to have dishonorable mentions, but they didn't quite make the list. So, we have Men in Black 3. Now, this one was on my list the last time we did this in 2017 or so. You know, the 3D is functional. It doesn't really do much, and the times it does do something, it's gimmicky, but it's functional, so it just missed the list. Detective Pikachu. Really weird. A lot of flat 3D, a lot of 3D that's not especially sharp. What saved it from actually going on the list was the climax with Mewtwo was actually very well done in 3D, which almost makes me kind of forgive the fact that the rest of the movie is average 3D. This one kind of hurts a little bit. You hate to see something that's so recent and should have all the kinks worked out, even be discussed, but Denis Villeneuve's Dune, 3D, you would think with something with scope that the 3D wouldn't have the problems it does, but it's clear that Villeneuve did not really personally supervise the 3D in this, and ironically, the vastness of the movie actually kind of works against it in some ways, because you go out to the desert and stuff, and you see the ships, and it's like the ship is like almost like a fly popping out, and the distance objects are so far away that you're not getting the texture there. So I think the way it was shot did not lead itself well to 3D in the first place. So unfortunately, I've got to give like a dishonorable mention to Dune. It's just such a good movie, I couldn't bring myself to actually put it on the list. You have Terminator 2, Judgment Day. Unfortunately, a lot of DNR, digital noise reduction, had to go into making this 3D presentation, and even though James Cameron supervised it, it gave the movie a very waxed feel. The reason it's not on the list is because this is probably the only time I'm really going to say this. Well, maybe. I guess the next one I'll say this kind of about it as well. The 3D is actually really good. It's just I think they damaged the image itself too much, so the 3D is kind of a moot point. And then my most bizarre Blu-ray 3D I have, and it still is, this is it. My opinion of this movie has definitely changed over the years. I remember when it first came out, it was just a cash grab, and I hated it. And then years after Michael Jackson's gone, I'm kind of glad we have it because we do have some of that final rehearsal footage. The 3D is just so odd in this one because it's not throughout the whole movie. It's only certain sections. It does one of those. It flashes green glasses to put the glasses on and flashes red to take them off. Now, the 3D that is in there is very good, but it's not constant and it's very infrequent. So it almost shouldn't be counted as a 3D movie, but it is. And it's just, there's just too much infrequency of the 3D to really, you know, call it good per se. All right, so now it is time for the worst Blu-ray 3D I have. Unfortunately, it's for a very good movie, but remember how a little earlier I talked about that pop-up storybook effect, how that really can take you out of the movie? Well, The Lion King is the absolute worst offender when it comes to this technique. This was, in my opinion, a very cheaply done, quick conversion to make a few extra bucks at the theater. Now, thankfully, it was successful enough that Disney put a little bit more effort into future 3D re-releases. So Beauty and the Beast, The Little Mermaid, Monsters Incorporated, especially Finding Nemo. These movies looked much, much better in 3D. But The Lion King stands out as just an ugly endeavor where it literally looks like a pop-up book. It looks like hovering stickers over painted backgrounds. It is not at all immersive. It just is not immersive at all. And it's just kind of a shame. Because again, this is a really good movie. I think the only scene that kind of looks good is the stampede and maybe the opening sequence. And yet even in those scenes, the 3D is so noticeable that it's really taking you out of the experience. And, you know, of course, unfortunately, like you see the Steelbook thing, this is worth a lot of money. Like, this set is worth a lot of money, and I don't know why. Because the experience, I would not want to wish the 3D on anyone on this one. So anyway, but very good movie, clearly. But this, out of all the good 3D movies that I have, or good movies with 3D, because this was not originally in 3D, clearly. This is the worst 3D experience for a good movie I have. So anyway, that is where we are going to end this one. Next week, we will talk about the best 3D Blu-rays I have for both good movies and bad movies. But in the meantime, what do you think of these choices? Would you have picked any of them? Are there any that I'm missing? I would love to know. Comment below. Like, favorite, share, subscribe. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.